Good day, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. As you all know that my name is Dr. Khan, clinical psychologist, psychotherapist, speech and language therapist, and I am advocating for mental health and autism and neurodiversity. And I'm doing so many other things also. So today I'm here not to talk about myself. My colleague actually said that you don't like to talk about yourself. I said there's a lot of things that I need to talk about myself. It will take a lot of time. So today I am just trying to start new because I'm working for in spectrum talks and tips. I have talked to a lot of people who belong to white community. Now I would like to add other community, and I would like to add their experiences too. So I have contacted a couple of people who are from black community, but today I'm going to talk about somebody from brown community, actually Asian community. So thank you so much, Uzma, today for coming to us and coming to me actually and agreeing up to talk to me. How are you and how are you feeling today?
I'm good, thank you. Very excited to be here.
Okay, so okay, I would like to ask you something, Usma. Before our discussion, we were talking about you being living in UK, and you were just talking about your experience over here. And you know
Hmm.
that, if I talk about the people over here, autism or ADHD somehow invisible disability. Like if you talk about intellectual disability, you could see a child and you would understand because of maybe some kind of physical, or the child is very low. The child have low body tone or birth weight. So somebody could suspect that the child have disability. But autism, ADHD, a lot of neurodiversity, let's say learning disability. These are some invisible disability. So over here, people are not even talking about that. They don't even consider it as a disability. So what is your perspective or what is your thinking about that? And then we will go toward your diagnosis and your own, we'll just wrap up this slowly and gradually. But what do you think that, because you are working with different organization too, and that the concept of invisible disability, do you think that people are familiar with that in Asian community where you are living right now?
We have a high prevalence rate here, which I was quite um, not so well, I suppose surprised in a way. I didn't expect that people would be forthcoming with pursuing a diagnosis of whatever neurodevelopmental condition they might have, ADHD, dyslexia, autism. So we actually have quite a higher prevalence rate than I would have anticipated in the sort of Asian brown community in the UK. Um, the only thing is that obviously autism being on a varied spectrum, the only ones that get picked up it seems to be the one that is most visible,
Exactly.
even though it's considered an invisible disability or an invisible condition that can impact you on your day-to-day life, that is different to the majority of the population. Um, Even when it's sort of at high support needs is when it gets picked up. And it's usually not the families that will pick it up. It will be the people that they engage with, health practitioners, schooling, etc. And then they will be put through a diagnosis process. So there is a prevalence rate that's quite significant, even amongst the ethnic community here, the Asian community, but it's not very much talked about. It's kept hidden.
Yeah, and yeah, that is true over here. Like let me tell you something. School would not tell you that, like in whenever you are going to school, and like I've been to school, a lot of schools, and like I'm working with children, I work with adult also. But I got a chance to talk to a lot of schools, to actually so-called normal schools. Over here you have either special school or you have so-called normal, or chain school, or private sector schools. So over here we have very few setups which are inclusive, and that is some NGOs might open that school, or maybe government also open that school. But even then, it's not that inclusive. Also, it's not that inclusive. But the point was that I have seen a lot of children who I suspected that they have autism or they have ADHD or they have learning disability, and nobody's paying any attention. So these children are being, even I just read that term, and I was quite, I did not like that term. That was explosive child. And what do you mean by explosive child? Do you think that terms is right, appropriate term to child, called a child, that a child is explosive child? Like the child is bursting, I don't know. But like
Yeah.
these are some terms they use actually, and the child
Yeah.
defines the child is, they would call it dheet. Bacha baat nahi manta, dheet hai, something like that. Or you would say, or they would say that pampered hai bahut zyada, you know, the child is highly pampered, or they would say that listening to nobody, proud child, you know, privileged child
Yeah.
actually. So these are something that they are associated with. And though they don't like to talk to other people because they are maybe class conscious, or they're called class conscious, and they are hiding their disability behind that, you know. Or if you don't call it a disability, we call it, they are hiding behind their autism behind it, but it is not talked over here. And let me tell you an interesting fact. We have been, like, not just me, I know a lot of people have been contacted that do not tell other people that our child is autistic or ADHD. Do not tell these people. Okay, we tell them that we are not going to tell anyone. So one of my colleague used to make video, like I also make videos, and I take permission of the parents. They know that definitely I'm making their videos if I'm uploading that, or otherwise I would just make video to send to them. The therapist was asked to delete all the videos of the child because they thought that they don't want that child to know that he is autistic.
Right. Okay.
And again, I mean, they were not understanding that the child will not understand that I have been in the therapy. So it is something like that. So it is something like hidden things, and they are going to schools. And what is the practice over here? A new school open, the child is in that school, and the child will stay in that school until and unless the child is being, the word is, kicked out of the school, and he will spend 3 more years in a new school. So the child is jumping into schools, and his condition is not being taken care of. You know, so
No.
or they will only come to us if the child has speech problem, or sometimes they ignore speech also. They look toward behavior, so they ignore the speech part. So that is something going around here, and people need to understand that whatever they are doing. And yes, there it is not talked about. People are misdiagnosing. If I give my professional opinion, if a child is a little bit hyper, it is diagnosed as, maybe, you know, it is called as autistic child. Or if a child have no speech, it is also termed as autistic child. So these are some discrepancy which is going around here. People think that this is what the reality is, but we need to understand that it is beyond that. So like you just said that you knew that, and it is not being that much talked about. And if we look toward the services, do you think that they find equal services over there, like they are subject to not any kind of discrimination? They would go and they will get access to all kind of medical facilities or therapeutic facilities, or they're facing any kind of problem over there?
I mean, I don't know enough about, because it's just been kept so enclosed in terms of sharing a diagnosis, or even suspecting that you know, a child in the family has autism, ADHD, etc. Because it's not very much talked about in the community unless you are very close to the individual and it's being spoken about in confidence. It's difficult to sort of make that evaluation as to who is accessing the services, and how is their experience with that service. It hasn't even got that far. So first of all, the community isn't very open within itself, and once we start talking as a community, okay, so you know, this is something that I've come across. It's not an issue for me, but it's a reality for me. This is the kind of support that I want. And then you start looking externally. Okay, so what is your experience with the services that can provide you that support externally? And then perhaps looking at other resources to give you that support. So so that is you know, very much in the distance. That isn't something that we haven't even got as far as looking at. So what is your experience with the services that are trained and professionally going to provide you the support that you need? You know, nobody even gets as far as talking about that. So maybe someone, you know, who works within the system is able to answer that question better. But for me, being a member of the public and doing more awareness work rather than clinically, I absolutely cannot make that judgment. And it's unfortunate. It is really unfortunate that people don't speak to each other enough to be able to voice any concerns that they have.
Okay, so it looked like that. situation is same over here too. So they have been taking this culture from this the place that you are living right now, because over here they're not talking about that. You know, they would say
Absolutely.
whether is not like it's good bad parenting, and that is the most associated thing with autism or ADHD, bad parenting, or we were doing a job and we were not able to give time to our child. That is second thing. And third thing, yes, they have mobile and we have give them to access to mobile, so that's why they have autism or they have ADHD. And unfortunate thing, like you're saying very much right over here, that and you are uh, absolutely right, I think so, that people are not even talking about that. So that's the reason that we will find very few people coming out and speaking about something like that or advocating for themselves. And if like I am I am talking to a lot of community, like autistic black community or ADHD black community, over there their concerns are different. They have still intersect, that racial trauma, they still have that. So they are, even if they have those disability, they are subject to a lot of problems still. They cannot get certain
Mm,
things, they have still problems. But if you talk about Asian community, then that is still a concern. Because why like, let me tell you something, why I started outreaching, maybe you, maybe Ben, or maybe other people around, why I want to understand that what is happening in Europe, why I want to understand. That was the exact reason. People want to migrate for their special needed children to other countries, and they do that. They are doing
okay.
that, and you know that it is not an easy process. It is a difficult process. And after going there, and you have to take diagnosis for the child, and then there's IEP, then you have to inject the child into something, and you have to those things, and they have no idea what to do about that. And they're still
Mm,
making that choice. And when they go there, things are difficult for them, you know and it's more like
yeah.
they have burned all the board and they went over there and coming back, and I have seen people coming back to again.
I think it's first of all, what is it that you're trying to access? And is that access the kind of support that you need based because the support itself doesn't have it could be the same. So on paper, it could be the same kind of support, but it's the way that it is delivered and the way that it is implemented. Is it suiting your context? Is it suiting your environment? Is it suiting the family culture that you're in? Do they understand that? Because this is a very behavioral type of thing.
Mhm.
It's not a clinical diagnosis in the sense that you have a physical issue and it will get treated and there's a cure for it. Neurodevelopmental conditions don't have a cure. It's not a disease. It doesn't have to be a deficit. It's some people won't even identify themselves as a disability. It is a difference.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, and the way that difference may impact the individual who is ADHD or autism is going to be that the way that they engage with their environment, the way that they engage with the people around them. So it's a very behavioral, social type of impact that it has on an individual rather than physical. And so does the service that you are trying to get that support from understand your context, understand the culture around you, understand your environment to be able to provide the support that you need? Because they may be able to apply that to the majority, which is going to be the white majority, and understand their context, but do they understand your unique sort of ethnic culture to be able to apply that? Because it could be that there may be a slight difference in the services that are provided. There could be more options here in terms of the services that you could go to, but there's still going to be barriers. And I don't think most people are familiar or even aware of what those barriers could be. So they would have maybe different barriers in the home country, but then they would still have barriers in the, migrating country that they are not aware of. At least you're aware of the barriers in your home country. So I think it's not just looking at the quality of service, but the quality of understanding that they have of you as a patient or you as an individual that they are hoping to work with to support.
And let me tell you something, like you were giving the example of context and you were giving the example of culture. A lot of people contacted me and they asked and they share their experience that in their school they have been teaches like they have taught about churches. and the way that they are doing, and they were Muslim. So people, if you talk about Muslim people, they're very sensitive about those topics, like how you could study this, how you could tell them about churches, how you can do that. And there was something also, even if you look toward the books that they have some animal which they are not supposed to talk. Like if you talk about pig, um, I have been even told
Mm.
so many times that, can you please just remove that picture, you know like if you talk about the flash cards, we have those pictures, then we have books where those things are there, then we have cartoons where these things are there, and these animals are there. So those contexts really matter, but there are certain things that we cannot even change in those things. Like if you talk about the flashcards that we have, we talk about the context that we have, or we talk about the like strategy that we are planning. Of course, if you are going to take training from external or international countries, they are going to put those things in their resource list. So that you need to understand that wherever you are going, what kind of services you have, and still you need to understand that either child is going to understand that or not. And in psychology we use a term which we call is psychosocial intervention.
Yeah.
And that psychosocial intervention include all the aspects without knowing any, for example, if I am working, like let me give an example. I was working with a child, and that child used to come from like if I'm like living in Islamabad, they were used to come from Murray side, like Barakpur side. There's an area over there. It's far. It's near to the Murray, and the child used to come from that place. And that was not. I would say that they were like from humble background. And if I look toward the child was, we call it swear, or you could say that level 3, of autism, or whatever you call it, whatever level you want to say it over here. Or if you talk about the functioning, his functioning was very disruptive. And even he was very hyper, but he was well managed. And the reason was he was living in a community. I would say that rather he was living in a street where he have whole family in that street. And like every house was his family member, or you could say that relative house. And he was going everywhere, he was communicating with everyone, he was going to market, he was going to, to other house, he was helping other people. And the psychosocial barrier was break over there, and he was well managed,
Mm.
he was able to, manage his condition because of that reason, because of the environment that he was in. So it is like very important to understand that it's very important to have that environment in your house. And now let's come toward yourself. Come toward you. And like we started from maybe off topic, on and off topic, but it was not about you. It was like, as we're talking about the problems that we have. Definitely we'll talk about this later on. But I would like you to tell you, let other people understand or know who are you and what you are doing.
So I'm a registered, well, UK registered psychologist. Just specialized in organizational behavior, so occupational psychology, not clinical psychology like yourself. I work as a senior DEI consultant. So I work with corporate organizations as an independent, well, as a consultant for a boutique consultancy in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sorry, my phone is going at the same time. But I'm also doing a doctorate in my final year where I'm actually researching neurodevelopmental conditions in the workplace and the impact it has on the way that they are appraised, their performance is appraised or reviewed, and the way that they are obviously progressing through their careers. So I look at neurodevelopmental conditions for adults in work.
And
So
what
that's a
about
little bit about me.
do you have
Also neurodivergent.
okay, so do you have any direct or indirect connection with neurodiversity or not? That is the bravest
Yeah.
part, I would say, if you come forward and talk.
Yep. So absolutely. And it is. And I think it's, if you expect other people to be more open about it in terms of the conversation, then, we have to set the tone first, right? So I was diagnosed with ADHD 2 years ago. So I had a late diagnosis as an adult. So I lived 2/3 of my life potentially. We obviously can't say that for sure, but I lived most of my life so far, just not realizing that I actually have a neurodevelopmental condition, and that was very tough. It was very tough for me. It was very tough for those around me. And I think just because of the greater awareness that we're having globally around neurodevelopmental conditions and how diagnosis is becoming a little bit more accessible, slightly more accessible, most of my family and my extended family are now, the children at least, so the next generation, have been diagnosed. Some of those have been diagnosed with a neurodevelopmental condition. So we're a mixture of autism and ADHD.
And let me tell you something a little bit about myself. I don't know you know about me or not. When I started my trainer used to call me that you have ADHD. Like he diagnosed me actually, and I said that okay, he's just messing around with because I always have that extra energy. I was always hyper aggressive and things like that. Now if I say this to somebody that I'm very aggressive, they will not believe me that you can't be aggressive. I don't know why they say that, but maybe I try to manage those things in my workplace. Like I just intensify my work environment so that my activities over there, or I indulge myself over there. I started researching about gender differences. And when I started researching about gender differences, a lot of things start making sense at that moment. And maybe it started 3 or 4 years back. And then I started getting the idea, okay, me, a person who have been working with autistic or ADHD since 2011, how that person could be like that. Like if you talk about therapists, then therapists need to be perfect. You know, they cannot have those things. They cannot have those things. They are supposed to be like that. They're supposed to be like that. And that was the exact reason of me masking more and more, day by day,
Mm,
more masking. And that masking was a lot of pressure on me, and
yeah,
a lot of meltdowns were there. A lot of there was other things too, but meltdowns were there, mood swings were there, and like I also have food sensitivities too, like gluten sensitivities too, and I have sleep deprivation of my whole life. So when I started, I used to say, okay, these are some very common thing because I belong to KP, and in KP, like if you're Pakhtun are hyper people. Pakhtun are kind of a people, if they would say something, then they are going to follow that. That rigidity. They're not going to change their
yeah,
plans because we don't like changing our plans. You know, what we say, we are
yeah,
going to definitely do about that. So it's like you give your tongue and you are going to follow that. So there was a lot of thing going around there, but it was hard part for me to understanding that yes, I need to unmask myself for certain things, and that was a difficult journey. That journey is not going to be easy, but that is something. Are you still there with me?
yes, I am. I am.
So,
Can you hear me?
yes, yes, I can hear you, but your picture is not clear. I think your camera is off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was a difficult part, and the understanding that me, a person who is too much involved in that thing, it's kind of a special interest and hyper focus in that. How this person could be, I could be like that. So that realization take a lot of time, a lot of understanding, and the reason was a therapist shouldn't be like that. Like you also know that you cannot do this, you cannot do this, you have certain ethics to follow. Just do that, be perfect person and stuff like that. Don't do this. So there was a lot of things going around, and maybe that was and there was another discrepancy that I now feel is that is a neurotypical research actually. The study that we are doing, the reading that we have, that is neurotypical. The techniques that we are studying, that is somehow neurotypical people have been, and that's why sometimes it does not make sense to you. You don't understand what is happening around there. So everybody have a different story that how they discover themselves or how they have been diagnosed over here. And like you said about yourself that like 2 years before you were diagnosed, but when it comes to talking to your family about that, but how you did that, or you still don't talk to them about that, or there's you are waiting for the right time to talk to them because you have, it's your own choice at the end of the day to tell them or not.
Yeah. Um, I think the way my diagnosis came about is because just because of the nature of the work that I do. So working as a psychologist and then working in specializing in neuropsychology and neurodevelopmental conditions, because it was what I wanted to do to support adults in the workplace. I started noticing certain things. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm looking at these case studies and they sound like me in my life. So
That was the thing that you have to mask more yourself. No, 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 not like that.
yeah, yeah. the thing is because whether it's a fortunate thing or an unfortunate thing, we have layers and layers and layers of sort of identity. And so which one do we attribute these behaviors to, these things that we're experiencing? And I always put it down to the differences that I had with the people that I engaged with outside of the home. Inside the home, we were all understanding. So I came from a very sort of supportive family. So inside the home, I never felt that need to mask. So outside of the home, I thought because the difference is just on the outside, maybe it's because of a cultural difference. Maybe it's because of my race. We do certain things differently inside the house and outside the house. And we put it down to that. So all my life, I thought it was that. And you have to understand that over here, we are a minority. So even though we may engage with other ethnic families, other Pakistani families, other Muslim families, there's not enough to be able to make that comparison to say, hang on, but I'm very different to them as well. It's just not enough to make that comparison. And so now this is my ADHD. I've forgotten what the question was.
And the funny thing is, I also forget about the question that I asked from you. I need to get that thought actually, but I asked from you because that conversation
You
is
need to start writing things down. So yeah, but it's all valuable. It's all valuable.
always valuable.
So
So you were talking
yeah,
about
no, just yeah, no,
I remember.
talking about the diagnosis. That
Yeah,
was
yeah,
it.
I
Yeah,
remember that because
there we go. We don't forget completely. It's working memory.
yeah,
So yeah, so just talking about the diagnosis. I mean, yeah, so because I came from that point of already learning about neurodiversity from a social psychology perspective and also the a clinical psychology perspective, I felt comfortable talking about it. I don't think that would be the same case for somebody who hadn't had built that awareness around neurodivergency before they got the diagnosis themselves. So the nature of my work is that being a positive voice for people that experience neurodivergency or identifies neurodivergency. So for me to then suddenly say, oh, I don't want to talk about my own diagnosis, it was contradictive. I felt absolutely comfortable and I felt empowered because of the knowledge and awareness that I had through my work. So when I told my family, my sort of immediate family, my mother, my siblings, it was, yeah, that explains a lot. But that was it. So having having a diagnosis, it doesn't excuse behavior. It doesn't suddenly make it better, if that's what you're looking for. At the end of the day, I think that's very ableist language. It's not,
over here.
we're no lesser as people.
Not
I mean, you're a highly educated woman, and very proactive and very active, even, for women that are very sort of educated, even then, not everybody's going to be proactive, and you probably achieved a lot. So, it's got nothing in the way of how we function, and how successful we can be. I've worked with individuals in the higher education England, which is working with professional doctors, and a lot of those are neurodevelopmental, so neurodivergent with a neurodevelopmental condition. So we have to go through the diagnosis with them and then see, what support the environment is going to have to provide them for them to pursue their career further. So I don't think it has any ability, it doesn't have any sort of negative impact in the way that you are on your intelligence and your ability. I think it's the way that the environment is built. So it's not a disability in the person, it's the environment. If it fails to support the individual and make the adjustments for the way that the individual thinks and behaves, it's the environment that disables the person. It's the people around them that will disable the person. The disability is not in the person themselves. That's probably the misconception that individuals have and families have when they don't feel comfortable sharing a diagnosis, because they're going to think, okay, does this make me lesser as a person? You know, is this going to make them look at me in any lesser way?
You know,
So because I already had that awareness, it helped share my diagnosis.
and like let me share one thing over here too. Just like for example, why? But I feel maybe I'm wrong over here, because still in Asian families, still in Pakistani families, I would say that there's a word bad parenting occur. Like they still talk about that. That a child is disabled because of bad parenting. A child have autism or ADHD because of bad parenting. Like I told you that first I have to work with them to take off their guilt. Like I am not just working with child, I am working with families too. And the other part of it, because I'm working with adult also. Right now, if I have 10 clients, 6 are 7 are sorry, neurodivergent adults, undiagnosed autistic or ADHD. And they came to me by the you could say complaints of or issues of they're not able to regulate their emotions, or they're having some kind of panic attacks, or that like that meltdowns kind of situation, or they have depression, you could say, or they have anxieties. So it was just like that. And when I went into those things, things started making sense. And then I just told them, and they are trying to understand themselves too. But the point over here is that we are still not talking about, because we don't even have a culture of that. Like the place that we both are working, uh, I have been asked that, do you know any organization who is working with neurodiversity? And I said that people don't even know. I didn't knew that there's some. To be very honest, like why would I lie about something? I'm not somebody who lie about things. I'm a very straightforward person. I did not knew this term until and unless I start talking about people around me. Until and unless I start talking about people on the broader perspective, when I talk to international community, because over here we have DSM, you know and in that we have neurodevelopmental disorder, and that is enough. That is all. If you talk about neurodiversity, it's only over there. Outside that, they don't talk about that. Outside that, they don't understand that. They think that it's a childhood disorder. They think that it is not. Or even they ask this question: am I going to get ADHD when I'm turn 18 or 17 or 19? you know they need to understand that, like they think like that, like it was something like that, and after that you cannot have that condition because it is a childhood disorder. So I think we have to do that. And there's something which I also feel that people are trying to spread out of misconceptions over here too. Like they're cashing that, and they're making money out of that. So they don't want to have people proper information. you know like I diagnosed a child, and like he was not actually the girl was actually with cerebral palsy, and that was a physical, you could say that the child came to me in the lap of a mother. Like he was not even walking, the child was not even walking. And I said to the mother that this is what is going to happen, and it's irreversible condition. We can manage the child. And a lot, and there were other things. And the mother was very upset on me that, oh, how you can say this, how dare do you say this to my child. I said that this is what it is. If you will come to me 1 year 2 year, I'm going to say the same thing. But you have still time. You need to understand that we can work on that child. She did not listen to me. She went to some other institution and some other places, and they ensure that the child is going to be done in 1 year. And she believed that because she wanted to believe that. And next time when the child came to me, her hands was like that. Like the time was gone, that precious time where if we would have worked, if we would have intervened, the child might have mobility in hands. So it's
Yeah,
more like you said, that the environment is making the child more crippled. Like I gave you the
yeah,
example of a child who came to me, and he was functional because of the family background he had, in terms of supportive family. Everybody was around, everybody was people were making him let mistake, like he was making mistake, he was taking risky behavior, he was going outside, he was doing everything. So that is important aspect over here. So like since you are in research also, and if you look toward the research part, uh, do you see that the data that people are collecting about having the, if they're trying to make something like that, or they're trying to make any kind of policy, they are taking autistic or ADHD subject, or they are taking the data from the parents or other people? What is your opinion about that? Or what is your experience?
Um, where they're getting the data from, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Where the data is coming from?
Well, because it is going to be looking at adults, and obviously it will be the individuals themselves that will consent to having the data shared and providing the data. So a lot of the because neurodiversity, even though it's been around for a few decades, it's still in its infancy when it comes to research. And so the research is pretty much qualitative as opposed to quantitative. And I suppose the good thing of that is that the information that is being gathered is by speaking to the individuals themselves directly, and that's the adults. When you're doing research involving childhood conditions, so conditions in childhood, whether that be ADHD, autism, or dyslexia, etc., I suppose the child can't really speak for themselves to the same extent. So you may be able to get or some information from them, but then you're also reliant on uh, supporting respondents or recipients to provide that information. So with adulthood, I suppose we are at that advantage, but we will go exactly to the source. Quantitatively, I think the only information that the only research that has been done is probably looking at meta-analysis or systematic, reviews, where they consolidate all the research that has been done in a particular topic around neurodiversity and neurodevelopmental conditions, and then look at that statistically from an evaluation perspective, like how robust is that evidence. I would like to see a lot more research done from a quantitative perspective. So looking at the numbers, looking at prevalences, that sort of thing, looking at significance. So I suppose in adults, we are at an advantage, looking at it from an adult perspective.
When people were working over in, like in very start, I just asked this question for somebody, and she told me that she's going to do a research on autistic children, and I was. It took me 1 week to understand that how he's going to ask question from an autistic child if the child is not responding, because technically, if you are doing some research on somebody, you have to have that encounter. Like you were saying that you would like to talk to that child, or you would like to have some encounter with that child, you want to spend some time with that child. And after 1 week she told me that she's going to talk to the teacher or the parents. And I never understand this idea that how we are going to say that this is an effective research for a child, you know. If you don't know, you are still talking about a child, you know. And we could be biased with our own children too, because we have
Yeah,
attachment. So biases would come over here too. So these are something that we need
yeah,
to consider over here too. And if we talk about even adult over here, and I think that is a very important trend. And those people who are neurodivergent have that trend that they want to actually talk to neurodivergent people. They actually want to have those people and their opinion considered when they are doing some kind of research. I think that's a very positive approach over here. And let's see that how your research come would, and how we would love to see that what kind of significance you get over here. And I would also love to see that what is the racial data you have, you know, like if you talk about
yeah,
ethnicity,
yeah.
the brown, black, white community, maybe mixed community, like, let me give an
We
example.
don't have to wait for very long. I've already published some of that data with two other colleagues. So we did some research last year, which was published in a journal for autism specifically, where we actually looked at autism at work programs and did an evaluative piece. And even though this wasn't our intention, some of our findings that came out of that emerged from the data, was looking at it from an intersectional perspective. So what is the difference of experience for individuals from different ethnic groups?
Right.
So I can absolutely share that link with you and share the paper that we wrote, and would love to hear your feedback.
The point is that because it is affecting, like for example, if you talk about eye contact, I think, especially if you talk about male eye contact, in our culture, Muslim or Pakistani culture, you have to lower your gaze. That's your respect.
Exactly.
That is a reality actually. And if you are a dependable girl, dependent on your family. You're a shy girl. You don't go out. You don't go for shopping. You like to stay at your home, and you don't like to have many friends. You are a very good girl. You are a perfect match for a perfect bahu. I'm sorry, but that is what is happening actually, and people are saying that, and they don't understand that what is behind that, what cover you are giving to that thing. You know, you don't understand that those people who are autistic, the girls that who are autistic, are the prime suspect of abuse because they don't know how to talk. And we talk about over here, we talk about mutism, situational mutism. We talk about anxieties over here. We talk about people being trust over here. And there's so many things, and there's so many aspects because today we are not even talking about what are the symptoms of autistic girl, and what are the symptoms if somebody is over here. But the point is, culture are there who are supporting those things. Male need to be
Yeah.
aggressive. Male don't show their emotion. Male don't cry, and that is a perfect Pakistani boy or Pakistani male. They don't talk to anyone, you know, and uh, they are being involved in their own, things. So the person would spend more time with his car as compared to with his wife, and that is the reality. You know, the person would spend more time in his lab, or if he's artist, as compared to he spend his time with family. And the person is hiding behind is, or maybe the autism or ADHD is hiding behind his profession. So if I look toward the profession that who are male, there are a lot of engineers, software engineers. A lot of them are software engineers, and you could call them painters. Some are painters too, because over here people are not that doing that much. But you could say that now, if it is a social media, then people are doing that. But if you talk about girls, a lot of girls are in art, and a few are in sports. So these are two prime profession that I have seen over here. If you talk about autistic or ADHD girls, so see, that is something we need to understand, that why they are going to that, and this is what they are doing, and this is they are trying to manage themselves over here. So I think that is an
Yeah.
interesting discussion that we are doing over here, and I also love to, because if you look toward my channel, I have interesting people with interesting discussions. So I talked to first autistic mayor. His name is, if I'm not wrong, his name is Anthony, I guess. Not Anthony. Forgot. I'm very bad in names. I think I need to watch that. What is his name? So I have a lot of people, and what I would like to tell people that, like you were saying, that it's not about that they have less brain. It's not about that they are not functioning. And even if you talk about disability, people take advantage of that. With disability means there are a lot of advantages, you know and I'm not pointing out to somebody, but this is what they are trying to do over there. And when you say something about that, then people will say that, okay, this is not a disability, this is a different ability, how we are different. So there's a lot of mixture over here, and there's a lot of
Mm.
politics involved in here too. So, like, since you're a researcher, do you think that there's politics over there too? We talk about the topic,
Absolutely. It
especially
absolutely is politics.
like
Yeah.
80,
And
but grant was for genetics research.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different schools of thought, even when it comes to research and the perspectives that they take. Um, the sort of principles that they work on. And I think, yeah, I mean, I think they have that everywhere, but it's just going to be slightly different for different places. So the politics that there will be in research here may be slightly different to the politics that you have in, another country, for instance, like Pakistan, because they're just the environment that you're in, the context that you're in, just the cultural differences that it is. Over here, I suppose the main politics in neurodivergency research is that a lot of the research has been done around those people that are most accessible, even in the neurodivergent community. So you'll see that a lot of, just take an example, if you wanted to look at research done on autism, who were the participants that, participated in that research? Male, white, autistic people from upper middle class that could that had the access to support, that had the access to a diagnosis. Over here, if you were to get a diagnosis done under the National Health Service, you're looking at now, because of the more awareness people have and trying to go for a diagnosis, you're looking at anything between 2 to 5 years for an autism or ADHD diagnosis. If you want to fast track that, then you do it privately. And then you're looking at anything between 3 to 6 months for a private paid diagnosis. So when you think about it, it's the privileged people here that have access to the resources. And there are lots of people that don't even that identify as neurodivergent but haven't had a formal diagnosis, because there's that much awareness. They are able to sort of say for themselves, I think I have a neurodivergency. But then the research is going to be sort of very selective in, you have to have a formal diagnosis for you to be able to participate in this study. And then you're already limiting your pool of participants. So when you're speaking to a limited pool of participants, you are gathering information from a limited source. It's not fully representative of the community, then, is it?
And if there's something else also, I don't know if you have seen that or not. This is some kind of a trend, and I don't know what to say about that. If you look towards somebody writing some articles, they are going to give the reference of somebody tweets also. Like somebody could have that tweet over here, so they will give the reference of that, and somebody did that research on the Twitter, and that was because I was just studying something about, I was giving, somebody asked some information from me, and I was researching for her. So that came in my notice. I knew this already, but I just went into that detail. So this is also happening. So do you think that that research is credible? Like, I'm not
It's
questioning that, but
valuable.
still that.
Yeah, I mean, the research, obviously, as academics, as researchers, we have to appraise the quality of the research as well. So yeah, but most of the research, I think, will have some value, if not to the value that they had proposed. So if they're doing, oh, we have done this research and it's on the autistic community, and then you look at the participants, well, okay, it's not the full autism, it's not fully representative of the autistic community, is it?
But
It's fully representative of
we have
autistic
a quite
male white community.
exactly that is
Yeah. So there is some value, but I think it's how you interpret the results. So I suppose, like you were saying, we could do research on children, but if they are non-verbal autistic children, then who's going to speak on their behalf? It's going to be their caregivers. So therefore, we are going to gather information from the caregivers. However they frame that research, anybody, with 2 brain cells will be able to identify that this research may not fully be representative of the child in question or the children in question. However, it still provides some valuable insight into the perspectives of the caregivers. So I think it's how the research question is framed. So what they could say is that we are providing, frame the question to match the output. So if the data that you're gathering is the perspectives of caregivers, then frame the question as perspective of caregivers on non-verbal autistic children.
And that there's a thing also that still we need to understand that if you look toward the criteria, that is a behavioral criteria. We are looking toward the behavior of the child, you know. So we need to understand that the behavior is different from psychosocial perspective. Psychology is a different thing. Not psychology, but I would say that thinking is a different thing. Emotions are a different thing. Behavior is a product of something. So these are some
Yeah.
different components. So if you are doing a research on one aspect, that is the behavior, we should not generalize that. Yeah, this child is going to, because we know that there are sensory differences. The child was doing very well for 1 week, then something happened at that day, and the child is going to go, backfire for 1 month. Anything could happen with that child. So we need to, I think, consider that, and we need to aware people of that. The research that is
Yeah.
going around, that is a behavioral thing. Like, we are talking about the behavior of the child. We're talking about the behavior of the child, which is, different. Maybe in classroom, the child behavior will be different in the home, home environment. And why I talk about that today? I was just talking to a mother, and I just diagnosed her child with ADHD, and she said that I just read the data or the behavior will be persistent in 3 different settings, like school settings and home setting and playground setting. And I said that, oh my
Yeah.
god, what should I say over here to her? Like, okay, there is a process that you cannot, do certain things, and you have to consider certain things. That if you talk about personality, that is actually the definition of the personality. That your personality is persistent in those things. But even then, That is a neurotypical personality. That we are not talking about neurodivergent personality. So people still need to be aware of those things, that the assumptions that we are making and the thing that we are doing. That is something we need to clarify people with. And I'm happy that people are working, and I'm happy that like I get a chance to talk to uh, neurodivergent brain, uh, brown, brown community girl, woman, whatever you call yourself. For me, you're an amazing person. And the point over here is that if you look toward the advocacy side, because still we will say that if you look toward different social sites, there are a lot of, and they are very famous too, like they have a lot of followers, and those are white people. What do you think about that?
Mm.
Because advocacy is playing a role, and advocacy is playing a lot of role in shaping people behavior, or they're shaping people thinking. So
Yeah.
what is your opinion about that?
I think we absolutely don't have enough ethnic minorities that are advocating neurodivergency, especially. I mean, there's been a massive, massive rise in, BAME communities or communities of color, whatever the term you may want to use, because everybody has a preference nowadays of how they want to be identified.
They
So
might
ethnic
also.
communities, yeah.
But
So ethnic, what term do I use now? There's always something that somebody doesn't like or prefers. But anyway, so for ethnic communities, I think they absolutely are very good at advocating. But I think when it comes to neurodivergency, we're still very, 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 behind in terms of advocating. And I think at the end of the day, there's a preference because we're all part of the same human race.
exactly.
There is going to be a preference, as much in the ethnic minority, the ethnic groups, as they are in going to be in the majority groups in whatever culture that you're from, um, you know, around the world. But at the end of the day, each community has its own sort of awareness, level of awareness, and we just seem to be very, very limited as part of a brown ethnic community in terms of our awareness around neurodivergency, especially from a positive perspective. So we have both. There are areas that we are going to find challenging, and they may be the same challenges that our neurotypical counterparts will have, but some of those may be more amplified for us. What we absolutely miss, and I'm a diagnostician when I look at cognitive abilities. So I look at, as I have worked with the adults that have neurodevelopmental conditions and done full cognitive diagnostic assessments with them. I may have not diagnosed a specific neurodevelopmental condition, but we do the more holistic diagnostics. And we look at their sort of different levels of cognitive ability. What we look for is a spiky profile. So we will measure cognitive abilities across different areas of ability. So non-verbal reasoning, verbal reasoning, working memory, processing speed, etc., etc. And then when we plot that on a graph, what we would expect to see to give us that first indication of this, possible neurodivergency here is we look for a very spiky profile. So where they might have some strengths as compared to the areas that they find maybe more challenging across those different abilities, there's going to be a massive discrepancy. So their strengths are going to sit far higher on the graph in compared to where their challenges sit.
Exactly.
Neurotypical person, they would sort of hover around that average line.
Exactly.
So they will still have slight waves in their profile. However, the differences between where their high scores are in comparison to where their lower scores, so where their challenges potentially may be, the difference is very slight. So they don't feel those challenges as more with that greater sort of difference. They
Yeah.
don't see those challenges more in comparison to where their strengths are because they're hovering around the average line. A high performing individual that is neurodivergent, their strengths, if you look at them, they're probably going to be sitting anywhere between 80 to 97 percentile, whereas the neurotypical counterpart will be between the 50th and 60th percentile. So the strengths, if they had an environment that helps them use those strengths and nurtures those strengths, it's going to far perform their neurotypical counterpart or their neurotypical colleague. If that environment is not going to be supportive of where they find those challenges, and instead it brings barriers to them, then those challenges are the ones that are going to surface as opposed to their strengths. So they are going to be surviving. They are going to be trying to mitigate those challenges because the environment isn't supporting them. It's creating barriers. So it's like trying to put out a fire. So they're going to be constantly, every day is like putting out a fire. I don't want my challenges to get in the way of this. I don't want my challenges to get in the
Or
way
there's
of that.
a trauma for
There's
that.
stress. Yeah, and there's a trauma for that. Those strengths that would help them become very, very valuable members of the community, become those, high potential doctors, for instance. And a lot of ADHD individuals that I have known, they thrive in medical professions like A&E. So fast-paced, critical thinking, where it's a sort of high stress levels,
Yeah, exactly.
critical situations. Yeah. So ADHD individuals, they thrive in situations like that.
There's a lot of people in forces too, actually, in armed forces.
Yeah. Yeah. Pilots.
They are, and they think
Yeah.
that there's a discrepancy between that. And the point over here is that,
Yeah.
if you talk about the anxieties that we have, or the anxieties, if you talk about the separation anxiety that we have, and the executive functions, maybe sometimes they're not, because, if I analyze the situation, we actually like certainties. We don't like uncertain things. We want to understand that what is going to happen if I don't wake up tomorrow. So for me, uh, my routine is very important. If something is missed, my whole day is going to ruin over there. So if I know that what is going to happen tomorrow, what I'm going to do tomorrow, I know that what I'm going to do day after tomorrow. So there is a routine which is going to make me more effective person. And if I will not
Yeah.
follow that routine, then I am going to hit my lowest point. And that lowest mean that I will get negativity around me. Like I'm not, worthy enough. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So if somebody would ask me, I would say that I have to have challenges in my life. If there is no challenge, I will put some challenge in my life. I will make a goal, something like that in my life, so that I feel relevant. So that is the reason that I'm doing a lot of things, because that is my food, that is my striving, or that is my soul food. I will do this.
Yeah.
I will do this. Because you we have those interests, and we want to do that, and we want to explore
Yeah.
something, and maybe give something to other people too. Because if you look toward our culture, who is doing that much? you know like, I'm not saying that I'm doing a lot, but the point is that there was a time when I would say that you people are giving wrong information. Whatever you are feeding, you are not telling them the reality. And I don't like that situation. Do not lie to people in different circumstances. That what is going to happen. I don't know, you lie.
Yeah.
We people do that. Like, we people lie. But the point over here is that if there's something that person should know on time, and that is going to save a lot of time of that person. So you need to tell them that these conditions
Exactly.
are
Yeah.
manageable, and people are doing a lot of amazing things all over the world, even now in our own country. They are doing that. Their ADHD or autism is behind their profession. It is behind their acting skill. It is behind their you know writing skill. It is behind their
Yeah.
painting skill, or it is behind their sports. So
Yeah.
there, and it
Yeah.
will be there, and it was here. It's not a new emergent condition. It was there, and we need to understand that the more awareness we have, the more we talk about that, and we need to have representation. It's not an easy thing to come forward, and even if I would say this to somebody, and this the person was saying, somebody put that propaganda against you. I said, okay, it's your choice. Whatever you want to say to me, I'm not going to
Yeah.
question that, and I don't do that anymore. Start, people giving the you could say that, sometimes people, you are giving the explanation, no, this is like that. I said that just do what is right, instead of telling people you are doing wrong. Just put you in
Yeah.
the right thing, because at the end of the day, you have to do, uh, uh, and you have to, at the end of the day, you are one who is sitting with your needs. So every
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have, you have to face that. Nobody's going to face that for you. So I think I have taken a lot
Absolutely.
of your time, and you look very tired. And that is,
Oh no, it's late here, you know. So I'm nocturnal as well, but I suppose I try and, you know, try and work with that as best as I can. But no, this has been really valuable, and it's really insightful for me to sort of hear, you know, that things are not that different in Pakistan as compared to England, especially with the ethnic community. Resources may be different, exposure may be slightly different, but the mentality and the attitudes within the actual. So if you just look at the ethnic community bubble, the mentality and the attitudes are not that different,
and the thing is that,
which is unfortunate in a way.
yes, let me tell you something. I am dealing so many cases of the people who have been their whole life outside the country, and they want a Pakistani therapist. And there are some reason they want that. There are reasons behind that. We need to understand that it matters. The way that you talk
Mm,
about your parents, it matters. The way you talk about certain things, it matters. The way you talk about men, women, it matters. So you
yeah.
cannot, because
Mm,
it is part of your DNA. You cannot distract those things from yourself. And if you talk about like yes, you're right over here that uh, we maybe don't have that much maybe awareness in terms of a lot of things. There are a lot of people are feeding a lot of misconceptions, and they're feeding a lot of information which they shouldn't be giving, and they're going to maybe waste the people time, and these children can learn more better, they can flourish more. But they are once somebody puts something on their name, or they label, these people are labeled, the thing that their life is going to end. It's not the reality. We have a lot of people around us who are doing amazing job. Like today we have somebody who's
yeah,
actually
yeah,
that, like, but your life would be, if you look at you as a child, that you are like, I don't know
yeah,
what will happen at that time. But I think that in that discussion was very insightful for me. And sure, again, maybe some other topic, but we will do that discussion again, because uh, people need to know that what is the reality,
yeah. No,
what is the challenges
yeah,
that we are facing. And that was the reason that I start
yeah.
talking about those people, those things. And I'm debating those things, and sometimes I am the one who is talking more.
No, no, no. No, I mean, but you're facilitating, and I think that's been really helpful for me because it helps me process. And this is another, you know, neurodivergency. Sometimes we want to be able to process a lot of information because we are very good at absorbing a lot of information. You know, we tend to sort of find it difficult to know what information to attend to. That's one of the thing. That's one of the misconceptions of ADHD. When they say it's inattentional difficulties, it's not lack of attention. We attend to everything. It's knowing what to filter out and what information to really focus on. So we just get overloaded with information. Oh, and that works against us, but that can be also a strength for us as well. So we may you know, we may spot information that other people miss, and we'll say, you've missed this point, what are you going to do with this information? And then come up with new ideas because they missed it. And I think acceptance comes from within. Once we can accept ourselves and our multiple identities, then we are able to advocate for ourselves. And then acceptance also needs to come from others, even within our community. And when there is that acceptance, then comes awareness. And it works in symbiosis. So sometimes acceptance only comes after awareness. So I think the work that you're doing is absolutely fabulous. And it's only through awareness that acceptance comes, and then being able to support each other, both in your strengths and any challenges that you have. And they're going to be different for individuals because we're never all born the same. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us all different gifts. My gift is ADHD. And I need to identify what that strength is for me, because it's been given to me for a reason. I'm going to use that strength, and I'm going to use that strength to do something valuable, like you are doing with yours. And if people around us are going to prevent us from doing that, then you know, we have to speak up about it.
Exactly. And we have to talk about the point. You know, the point is that somebody have to take that charge. So, like, I'm not representing everyone. You're not representing everyone. I'm not expert of everyone, and I cannot be. Nobody can be. Please keep this thing in your mind. If you're reading something, it is their experience. It is not everybody else's experience. Today we give example. You give me example because you did a lot of research on that. I give you some certain example because I'm working with children and adults for a lot of for longer period of my time, and I'm too much invested into that because this is I like to do that. If I will do so other things, I would give preference to my this work and to talk to people. And I am talking to the neurodiversity community for so long, like ADHD adults or maybe other neurodiversity too. And I came to know that the point is it is coming from your inside acceptance. You know, the acceptance is coming from inside, and you have to love yourself. You have to forgive yourself. You have to learn that how to forgive yourself. And you have no role in your ADHD. Like, it is not your fault. Autism is not your fault. Autism is not the parent's fault. Autism or ADHD is not the parent's fault. It is not bad parenting. You know, it was meant to happen. No matter it is UK, it is Pakistan, it is America, wherever it is. So with this end of message, I would like to say thank you to everybody who will listen to our discussion, 1 hour 14 minutes discussion. I think before that it might be 1 hour. No, I did one discussion for 3 hours with a woman. She was autistic, and that was amazing discussion. That was about
I'm sure.
yeah, that was amazing discussion. And I we did one discussion for 6 hours actually. There was a lot of things that we were discussing about. So it's about when you see like-minded people, and they have same thirst of knowledge that you have. So you want to talk to them. So again, thank you so much, Uzma. Hope to talk to
Thank
you again, and hope to have more insight the work that you are doing, because I know that this is going to help a lot of people, and it and keep helping people, keep advocating for people. And with this note, thank you so much everyone. Bye. Allah Hafiz.
thank you.